Been doing a lot of these. All right, we are
Hello.
live. Hi, everybody. Welcome to my weekly virtual book tour event. I took a couple of weeks of a break, but we're back. I hope everybody's doing well and staying healthy and connected as well. If you're joining us for the first time, I'm Rana el Kaliouby. I am co-founder and CEO of Affectiva. We are an emotion AI company on a mission to humanize technology. We spun out of MIT a number of years ago, and we'll talk a little bit about that story a little later. I'm also author of the new book, Girl Decoded. And if you haven't had a chance to read it yet, please do. It's a memoir, and I talk a lot about the core technology, but also my personal journey. So today we're going to focus on the topic of emotion AI and how it intersects with personalization. We often have people tune in from all over the world, which was what I love about these virtual events. But today in particular, I want to give a shout out to one special guest and one special audience member, I should say. So if you know some of the stuff I've done, I co-hosted a PBS Nova series, and it is really targeted at young scientists who are curious about the world. And when PBS approached me to do this, I was like, oh my God, it's a lot of work. Why should I do this? And they said, well, maybe you'll inspire some young person out there. And that kind of tipped me off, and I took it on. And sure enough, one young person, Calvin Turio. Hi, Calvin, wherever you are, welcome. Calvin is 6, and he is an aspiring scientist. So proud of you, Calvin, and we're so excited to have you with us today.
He's in Boston, like you.
Yeah, so Duncan, have you met Calvin before?
I haven't met Calvin. I know Calvin's mum very well, so and she would never ask for that name drop, so she'll certainly appreciate it, even though she would never ask for it.
Well, very excited. I love it when young people are interested in the work we do. So I have a special guest with me today, Duncan Smith. Duncan is an executive vice president at Cambridge Consultants and a leader in personalization. I want to talk a little bit about the backstory of how I got to know Duncan. Remember the days when we were flying? So I was at CES, and I was on a red-eye flight back to Boston from Vegas, and I
feels like a long time ago.
I know, it feels like 100 years ago. And I was in the middle seat, believe it or not, which I think is going to go away, hopefully, that concept altogether. But on my right was this guy, and I was still kind of fired up because of CES, and I introduced myself and Eric Cohen, who's another EVP at Cambridge Consultants. We connected, and we discovered a lot of synergies between our companies, and he introduced me to you. Just says something about serendipitous meetings, right? You've got to always.
Well, it also says a lot about Eric, because he's the consummate networker, and he would certainly see sitting on an aeroplane as an opportunity to make connections on the way back from a show. So it doesn't surprise me. Very happy to get the introduction.
I was the annoying neighbor who wouldn't let him go to sleep, but I think I should let him get a few hours of sleep. Anyways, welcome. So excited to have you. You live in Cambridge, UK, just less than a mile away from where I lived many years ago.
I do, and so Cambridge Consultants is a big global company, and despite living in Cambridge, where I'm resting at home, I'm actually the head of our US business, which includes a bunch of very talented people in Boston, Seattle, and San Francisco, both with Cambridge Consultants and Synapse, about 250 people across those offices. And we're a company that delivers breakthrough programs for clients, for the most ambitious clients who are trying to do something that is really novel, and across markets like medical, consumer, and industrial. They're trying to do something that is a very mission critical project for them, and we're the company they get to deliver those sorts of technology based programs that are critical to their business. So it's very good to be here, and personalization is an area I care about deeply, and have done for a while. And really particularly in the area of the crossover and the convergence between the digital and the physical, and we'll talk about that more a bit later. But yes, I'm at home with my family in Cambridge during COVID, and I know your story didn't start in Cambridge, but of course Cambridge was an important step along the way for you, wasn't it, in terms of the path towards Affectiva?
Oh, absolutely. Cambridge. So it's where I did my PhD, and I lived there for 5 years, and it was absolutely transformative. It's where I fell in love with research, and where I kind of built the very first version of an emotionally intelligent machine. So I actually miss Cambridge a lot. Yeah.
And you work with some breakthrough scientists in both computer science and behavioral science while you were here?
Yeah, so my background is I'm a computer scientist, and I got to Cambridge and I was pitching this idea of how to build machines that particularly understand the facial expressions. I'm very expressive, and I really recognize the value that the face brings. And so I was giving this very first talk to the computer science department, and somebody in the audience, in the Q&A said, my brother has autism. You really ought to look into that, because he has a lot of issues reading and understanding nonverbal signals, and it sounds like you're looking into that area. And sure enough, it turns out that Cambridge University has one of the most renowned autism research institutions, headed by Simon Baron-Cohen, an incredible scientist and psychologist and thought leader in this space. So I ended up, writing him an email and met with him, and he was so generous. At the time, he was building a database for autistic kids to help them. It was like a repository of about 412 different mental and emotional states, which would have taken me years and years to do myself, right? And he said, here, I'll share it with you, and you can use it to train your algorithms. So that was really pivotal to my research.
Now, I happen to have a copy of your book, funnily enough, here, and that was a bit that obviously, I found fantastic, because it was about Cambridge and people I knew, and the fact that it was 412 states, where I think up to that point you were kind of hoping to differentiate between about 7, and right. Suddenly there's 412. So that must have been both challenging, but also very rewarding in terms of validating what you were trying to do.
Yeah, for me, it underscored this hypothesis that I had, that we are able to express way more than just 7 states, right? At the time, there was a lot of emphasis on these just 7 states, like happiness, sadness, anger, fear, disgust, surprise. And I just felt that there was a lot more information that we can communicate with one another, and also that we communicate with our technology, right? Because I was really kind of fixated on this idea of building emotionally intelligent computers and algorithms. And so his data really validated that, but it also allowed me to be able to bootstrap some algorithms using his data. So he had, this was a 5-year-long initiative, millions of dollars of funding, where he had actors and actresses express these 412 emotional states, both via the face and the voice. And then he had a team of judges essentially label or annotate the videos. So it was a labeled data set. It was amazing, and very diverse too. Like, he had diverse age ranges and ethnic groups and genders. So it was really phenomenal.
Amazing. And so tell us, how, fast forward to Affectiva, how did that influence the start of Affectiva and what you're doing now?
So after my PhD, so towards the end of my PhD, again, one of these serendipitous meetings, we got an email at the lab in Cambridge that this very well-known professor at MIT is going to visit, Rosalind Picard, who I'd been following her work for years, but I had never met her in person. Turns out she was going to give a talk at Cambridge, but wanted to spend some time at the lab. So I signed up for her like 15-minute slots. And we ended up spending almost an hour together, and we just totally hit it off. And I think the thing that kind of connected us both is this vision that when you build emotionally intelligent technology, it doesn't only transform human machine interfaces, but it ultimately transforms human communication. And so we ended up agreeing to write a proposal to the United States National Science Foundation to work on an autism related, to kind of take the technology and apply it to autism. And that was what brought me over to the United States, to the MIT Media Lab. And shortly thereafter, when I got there, we just started to get a ton of commercial interest from all over the place. I mean, you at Cambridge Consultants, it seems like you're very used to doing projects across industry.
Oh, definitely. That's transferring technologies from one industry to another is a fantastic source of innovation, because a technology that can be quite commoditized in one industry can be really innovative in another. And so we cross-fertilize that all the time. And of course, we're big enough to do that. So yeah, absolutely. What you're describing is, but of course, MIT Media Lab is a hotbed for that kind of stuff, isn't it? So.
Right. And that's exactly what happened. We would be showcasing all the autism kind of application, but like Bank of America wanted to use it for customer experience, and Toyota wanted to use it for driver monitoring. And after a list of about 20 different companies, I thought the solution was to hire more PhD students, but our lab director at the time said, this is really an opportunity to spin out of the lab, and Affectiva was born, and that was 10 years ago. So,
wow.
Yeah.
And I know you've had a couple of market areas. One we want to talk about a bit was automotive, because that leads directly on to talking about personalization. So that's a new product area for you?
Yeah. So our kind of the original product application was around understanding and quantifying the emotional engagement users have with content. But then about 3 years ago, we took a step back and we kind of went back to our mission of humanizing technology, and realized that automotive was an industry that was undergoing a lot of disruption and was ripe for personalization. And so the idea there is an in-cabin sensing, kind of smart in-cabin sensing solution that can monitor the driver. So if you're tired or falling asleep or distracted, but also the other occupants in the vehicle, so that it can personalize and optimize the riding experience. So I don't know, do you have any thoughts around what that could look like?
Well, personalization in that context is, like you say, there's a kind of, presumably safety is a main driver for innovation in that area, but personalization, the actual cabin experience is beyond that, into areas where you're starting to get into physical digital overlap. So where the user interface isn't purely digital and it isn't purely physical, and you've got an overlap between those. Do you see those sorts of things starting to personalize based on the emotional state of the driver?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it starts with the car, but if you think about it, the car is really just a social robot on a wheel. So the application to conversational agents and social robotics, I think, is really exciting. We're going to start to see a lot of that percolate across industries, like as a result of the global pandemic, right? You can imagine how frontline social robots could take the place, not entirely, but could augment frontline health workers. Or maybe, we've had a number of social robots in our home that act as learning companions or social companions. So I think we're going to start to see a lot of that. And that's where, emotion AI plays a big role.
So we at CC, I've just been very interested in this. Personalization really started with concepts around customization of the experience for purchasing. We're all used to that. We go online and we're curating our experience purchasing. And there's a temptation to think that personalization is just about you being fed your targeted information, target advertising. But personalization goes way beyond that and as soon as it touches the physical world, that's where I think it gets particularly interesting. And you're touching on that in the automotive sense. But we're very interested in how in time it won't be just software products, digital services that are customized. It will actually start to be the physical experience that gets customized as well. So for example, a classical example of that is there's a product called Perso, which is a concept product made by L'Oreal, which is where the actual cosmetic product is personalized to your needs. And the way they work out your needs is not simply by you kind of typing in choices on something. It also looks at your face and recognizes your face, but it also goes and looks at things like current trends on Instagram and what's going on out in the world that might influence what your choice is. Now, imagine adding emotional AI onto that as well. Presumably adding the perception of your emotions onto that would make that even more powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. And it could, I mean, what I think is really interesting about this is you guys are combining kind of the reactions and the emotional intelligence part with physiological and biological sensing, which I just find really fascinating. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the future, imagine a world where we're able to adapt physical products, a bit like the example I just gave you with cosmetics. But imagine any physical product is able to adapt to the needs of the user. That's going to take quite a lot of breakthrough technologies. And one of the reasons I'm interested in personalization is we're very lucky at Cambridge Consultants, as well as doing development projects for big clients that are breakthrough, we also get to put a bit of our time aside to doing research projects and into new areas where we see breakthroughs coming. A bit like your human machine understanding, which is an area where it's quite adjacent to what you do, but also areas like bio-innovation, biological sensors that you mentioned, and also AI, but that's moving forward into new areas of AI, and also areas like not just biological sensing, but also bio-innovation for delivering new breakthrough technologies where previously physical sensors were used, but now biological sensors can be used too. So all of these technologies will start to combine to enable us to both sense but also customize the experience in the physical world as well as in the digital world for consumers.
You know, my favorite example of an emotion-enabled device would be a smart fridge with an emotion AI chip that basically says, you know, I walk up to it and it says, you know, I know you're stressed, but I'm not going to let you have the 5th tub of Ben & Jerry's ice cream today. You're done. And it just locks itself down.
Okay, well, smart fridges, of course, you know, smart fridge concepts have been around for so long. I worked on a smart fridge concept a long time ago, but emotional AI could be the thing that actually makes them real, because having a fridge that becomes your conscience could be quite a powerful thing. So, which is built on the idea of digital twins. So a digital twin is a digital representation of something in the physical world that's very complex. So I'm sure you're familiar with this, but some of our audience might not be. So in this case, it's a person where clearly making a digital model of something physically very complex, like a person, is very difficult. And so, and it learns over time. So a digital twin is the idea that you have this model of a person that learns over time what you need, and it will take inputs from not only physical sensors, biological sensors, like we mentioned, maybe the surroundings around you, your environment, your emotional state could all feed into that, and build a model over time that predicts what you want. Now, it's very hard to predict what people want. And as computing power improves, these digital twins will be able to more accurately predict what people want. And that is partly because as computing power increases, we'll be able to have multiple digital twins, because although these digital twins are computer models, they're not going to be terribly accurate, and you might need multiple of them and take an average of their outputs to be able to predict what someone might want, which is a bit like how weather forecasting works, where people are a bit chaotic and a bit predictable like the weather. So building a digital twin model of them, like a virtual person, which could provide coaching and also maybe advice, like your fridge, where you might find that your fridge says, actually, you shouldn't have a Ben & Jerry's now, you maybe should have a pineapple instead. That's the kind of technology that will really influence personalization in the future.
Right. You know what I find really interesting about the concept of a digital twin is that it's almost like your passport or your profile that can transcend or translate from one device to another. So imagine if, you know, my smart fridge shares my digital twin profile or my latest data with my car as I walk into my car. And so the car coming into it already knows if I'm tired, if I'm alert, if I'm stressed, and it can take actions and personalize the experience as well. So I find that concept really interesting.
Oh yeah, I mean, it would, for that to work, it would have to be holistic. You'd have to have something that understood all of you and gradually learnt over time and was able to coach you at different parts of your life to get the better experience. And it, like I say, imagine if it was both aware of your physiology, but also, and your circumstances and around you, but also aware of your emotional state. It would be a much more powerful coach for you in helping you understand things.
Yeah.
So if we imagine in the future, you're able to have that kind of model of what someone might want, you're going to get way beyond what's currently available with point solutions which just try and predict what you want just right now, like, you know, when you talk to an Alexa and you just get a response to what you're wanting now. So are there other applications like that for emotional AI that you see coming?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Alexa. One use case that I'm very passionate about, and I know Cambridge consultants are too, is the application to mental health, right? So you can imagine how, again, with this concept of a digital twin, you have an understanding of the person's baseline, so that if they start deviating from that baseline, you can, and raising red flags around maybe, you know, again, stress, anxiety, depression, maybe things like autism or Parkinson's. You now have longitudinal data that you could flag to the person, you could flag to a family member, or even a clinician or a doctor. So I just find that that space is really ripe for a lot of innovation.
Absolutely. And when I talk about personalizing experiences, of course, personalization and inclusivity are really the same thing. You're talking about hardware and software that adapts to meet the needs of the person, rather than the person having to adapt to meet the fixed user interface of the product. And that's really the same thing, whether the motivation is around personalization to make the experience better or more tailored to someone, or whether it's just to make it much more accessible to people for them to be able to use the technology.
Can you give an example of that?
Oh, well, I mean, we've all had to use, we've all watched an elderly relative try and use a smartphone, right? Or even in my case, my mum who's stuck trying to use an iPad. She's in, you know, COVID lockdown, and she really struggles even with the most simple user interface. If you can imagine a world where physically the product could adapt to meet their needs, rather than just them having to adapt to meet a fixed physical product. So, and I think that the breakthrough is where it becomes about the physical product, not just about the software that's on it, because as the product can adapt to meet their needs, then that's where personalization becomes really powerful.
Yeah, which is a really interesting, I mean, the way we like to kind of think about it is making sure that when we're designing these products and experiences, that the team designing it is inclusive too, right? So you have different points of views around the table, be it, you know, diversity of backgrounds, gender diversity, age diversity, ethnic diversity. I think it's just really important to bring different brains to the table to ensure that, you know, what we come up, that the outcome is just more inclusive. Yeah, absolutely.
And the more the better. I mean, as we develop more and more breakthrough products, the need to take in the needs of the whole community is more and more important. I mean, and innovation thrives on variety. So absolutely.
So I'm seeing a lot of comments and questions. So I thought we can take a few of these. So hi, everybody. I see a lot of you engaging, which is awesome. Do let us know where you're tuning in from. Khaled, Mina, Wasim, Nadim, Saddam.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Saipan, hi, everybody. Mohammed, Anna, hi there. Alexandra, Kapil, Zachary. Awesome. Okay, let's see some questions. Anna says, congrats from DC. Thank you for championing AI and emerging technology in the field of emotion AI. Honored to join. Greetings from Abu Dhabi, Birmingham, Sweden. Awesome.
Should we talk about, I'm just trying to see if I was expecting someone to ask about privacy, because it's such an obvious question, especially about digital twins. So I know obviously privacy is something that Affectiva cares a lot about. tell us about obviously, if we're trying to measure someone's emotional state, that has implications, and there are plenty of discussions around AI and privacy. There was one in The Economist today around that topic. So tell us what Affectiva's approach towards privacy.
Yeah, I think at the highest level, it's important to acknowledge that this data is extremely personal, right? And so our approach to it has always been to respect that and respect people's privacy and ensure that we don't engage in any business where there isn't an explicit opt-in and consenting for the user. So our belief is the user needs to know that they're being tracked, or that there is a sensor there and it's collecting data on them. And it's important that they realize that it's there, that they understand who is collecting the data, how is it being stored, who's using it, and what for, which this kind of transparency hasn't always been the case in technology. So that's also meant that there are some industries we just don't do a lot of work with. We don't do any work with, like surveillance and security. We've just kind of basically declined the application of emotion AI in this field. And then, of course, I haven't read the Economist article, but there's a lot of, a few tech companies have come out and said they will not do facial recognition. They will not apply, they won't make their facial recognition technology available to governments or police, which we've never done. But I thought that was interesting as well.
Yeah, I think, we see technology solutions to the privacy issues, and I think you hit the nail on the head saying transparency. I think how data is used and how it's processed is vital that it's transparent to people, and that's a philosophy we have, so that people know how their data is being used.
Yeah. Go ahead.
We also see that technology has a huge part to play in solving that. So I think edge processing, so the ability to locally process the data very, very close to the user without having to expose anything except the essential data up to the cloud, so that you can abstract the data and keep it personal and really balance the kind of the power of the AI versus the privacy. And as computing platforms improve locally, that can be done in an embedded way within someone's environment, we'll be able to run algorithms locally that allow you to keep the data private and reduce the need to share it with so much of it with the cloud. And I think that will make a big difference. So I think that's our responsibility and the challenge that we face, to try and embed these algorithms locally rather than having them run on clouds all the time.
Yeah, and this is, I believe this is an area that Cambridge Consultants really kind of specializes in, this concept of edge computing. Is that right?
Well, it's one of those areas I mentioned where we're investing ahead of the curve to make sure that we have these kinds of technologies available to make our clients more successful, because edge processing is just one of those ones that's an obvious step forward. And it doesn't mean there'll be no processing on the cloud, because you need to get the benefit of the combination of all the algorithms running. But being able to run those sorts of algorithms, even the learning algorithms, not just the final bit, but the bit that's learning, doing the machine learning locally is a speciality, and it's certainly an area that we think is going to make a huge difference to privacy. Yeah,
it's definitely a hot area for us too. So all of the work we do in the automotive industry is in the car, on the edge, which has a huge kind of implications, because you can't run, humongous deep learning neural networks that you would ordinarily do in the clouds. You can't really do that on the edge. So we spend a lot of time innovating around how to shrink these models so that they can run, on the edge or on
exactly.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear a world expert like you using a phrase like humongous. That makes me feel much better.
So there's
official humongous algorithms. Those. I'm not going to settle for any algorithm that isn't humongous from now on.
Right. So there's a somewhat related question that I want us to tackle from Atif Khan. Hi, Rana, talking about emotional fridge. I'm interested to understand the risk of human transferring total self-control and conscious use of control of human behavior to gadgets. So this idea of who's in control, I want to hear your point of view, and then I can weigh in.
Well, a digital twin is never going to take over your life. It ought to provide a digital coaching service. It ought to be there to suggest things and help you make choices. Decision support. I mean, decision support is not a new thing. Having multiple sensors that provide a kind of a pre-decision that then an operator will then use is something that's used by multiple agencies around the world to help people judge very complex situations. So this is not a new idea. So it's no way we're going to anyone suggesting we cede the decision making to the machine any more than we're suggesting that you kind of do everything that it says you should do on Instagram. It's still your choice.
But I kind of really like that concept of a decision support system because, as you said, that has existed for years, right? What is maybe really novel here is that we're making a personalized decision support system per person, right? So I'll have which is actually really interesting.
It's closing the loop. It's that feedback loop that is the combination of these physiological, biological sensors, and I really think combining that with emotional sensing, and you've got something that is really powerful. But absolutely, to our friend who asked the question's point, there's no way we should cede control to it, and that's why privacy is so important, because you have to maintain control of your data. Right. Otherwise that's a real problem.
Yep. I'm looking at other. We have people from Oklahoma, Bangladesh. There's a question about kind of applications to learning as well. So that could be an interesting one. Do you explore the education space at all?
We have done. I mean, we go wherever our clients take us, and in education, the most important thing, to be honest, we do in education is try and help the education system bring through more brilliant engineers and scientists who can help contribute to us. So we do a lot of outreach in the community to education, and of course that comes back to your point about diversity and inclusion, where that's definitely something we see as essential, is encouraging more diversity and inclusion in the education system into our kinds of disciplines, because it makes such a difference to get those perspectives. And of course you're a fantastic example of that. So in terms of applications, what have you done educational applications for Emotion AI?
Only a little bit. It's another one of these areas where I'm very passionate about, and I know there's a lot of applicability. I mean, just imagine now. I think one of our kids are the same age. So I have an 11-year-old. You have a 12.
No, you're older.
17. My older is 17.
I have a 17-year-old. So.
Yeah. So
16-year-old.
They've been learning online. What?
Sorry, go on. I should know that.
Right.
They're going to kill me now. They're probably watching.
It's okay. We won't tell them. But yeah, like my kids have been learning online the past few months, and it's really tough. It's really tough to stay engaged. And also, I think it's really tough for the teacher or the educator to get a sense of the emotional engagement of his or her students. And that's an area where the concept of a digital twin, right, that really kind of understands the person and makes that data available so that the teacher can make informed decisions on, okay, is the student ready to learn? Is he or she distracted, engaged, frustrated, and be able to leverage that to personalize the learning experience? Actually, you know what? A few years ago, I had my daughter take Khan Academy. I don't know if it's big in, it's big in the US. I don't know if it's big globally. But I had her take these math classes, online classes. And I asked if I could record some of her learning sessions. And it was just so fascinating. And she was like maybe 6 or 7 years old. And you could see her, like, if she's excited, she would perk up and lean in, and like her eyebrows would go up. And if she's like bored, she'd be like, there was a lot of that. But the online learning platform was so oblivious to any of that. Whereas if it had Emotion AI integrated, it could clue into the fact that she's losing interest, and maybe, I don't know, like, an avatar pops up and says, hey, Jana, like, let's do this problem together, right? Like something that engages her.
Yeah, absolutely. by coincidence, my wife works for a education establishment that does online learning as standard. So now suddenly the whole world is doing online learning. It's kind of their core area has now become the same for everyone, and it's very interesting how people respond differently to online learning now. And in fact, we're all used to Zoom now, and we're all used to doing this now. But that change is of course not going to go backwards. Do you see that? Do you see that emotion AI is going to have an impact very differently now that we're so used to online learning and so used to platforms where we've got a camera pointing at us? Therefore, facial recognition is going to be that much more common.
I think so. I think there's a lot of, I mean, the positive side, people are getting used to these virtual kind of platforms. But I think we're going to see a lot of innovation that's going to sit on top that can quantify these interactions in a way that creates more of a shared experience. Like imagine if we could now, imagine if we had a real-time curve now showing us the engagement of everybody that's tuned in, right? I would love that. With everybody's consent, of course. But then we could see if people were interested in what we were saying or not, the way we would if we were in a live auditorium. So I think we're going to see a lot more innovation in that realm as well. I mean, and then telehealth is another area where I think, again, the whole universe has been kind of accelerated into deploying telehealth. Is that an area you're looking into?
Oh yeah, I mean. Personalized medicine is clearly going to be a huge growth area, and telemedicine as well. So really, we've had a digital health push for too many years, in the sense that I think we were a bit ahead of our time, and suddenly there's, I think, now an opportunity where traditionally quite obviously medicine is a risk-averse area where things move relatively slowly, but I think there could be a breakthrough change now in telemedicine, simply because the necessity to be able to deliver more of the care experience in the home rather than in the hospital will increase, and so technologies which previously you would have thought, well, it's still a better option to deliver this care in a hospital.
Yeah.
Where you can invest more, and where you can have more attention and be more focused on the care, that will change to looking to more decentralized, where options to deliver more care in the home via telemedicine will be more realistic. But we'll see. We're certainly expecting that to change.
Yeah.
And of course, clearly understanding the emotions of the patient will make a massive difference to the ability for remote doctors to be able to help.
And what I find really interesting about this is, you visit the doctor, I don't know, maybe like once a month. Like if you have an issue, you will see the doctor like once or twice a month. Yeah. Where with this technology and these types of technology platforms, you have an opportunity to collect data all the time, right? And then summarize it and present it to the physician or clinician, at the point of an actual televisit. So I think we're going to start to see a lot of innovation there, and I'm quite excited about that.
Yeah, so it's trickling down from things like clinical studies where there's been a requirement or a desire to instrument the study so that you don't just rely on people filling in forms to report on the study. You can actually measure what they're doing and how they're reacting. That technology were available not just for clinical studies, but also via a digital twin for you to be able to, for anyone under a drug regime to be able to have more real-time information for the clinician during the period at which they're using the drug, and you'll obviously get a better result. So
yeah. And what I also think is back to this idea of a coach or a kind of a digital twin that could provide you with suggestions. We are partnered with a company, and they do a social robot called Mabu, and Mabu goes home with terminally ill patients. And the idea is that it helps the patient stick to a regimen, right? And checks in way more often than a human clinician or nurse would be able to do, and flags if the patient is kind of not adhering to what they're supposed to do. And I find that really interesting, because these devices will be way more effective if they are empathetic and if they are really clued into how the patient is feeling and can build that into the suggestions.
Empathy is a really interesting word to use, because technology is not traditionally empathetic. And so the idea that you're going beyond just detecting the emotions of the person to actually empathizing with them is really the next level, isn't it? Of not just emotion perception, it's actually empathetic technology that is seeing the world through your eyes.
Right. And I think what is interesting, and Vera has a question related to that. Do you think if AI was built into social media, that people would be kinder to each other in their comments and interactions? Having teens that have been hurt by unkind interactions made me think about this. It's a great question. Do you have any thoughts?
Well, I hope so, is the answer. Having teens, and in my case, confident teens, but it's very difficult, isn't it? And I think one of the challenges with that kind of communication on social media is a lot of it, of course, isn't face-to-face. A lot of it is purely through words, and you have that extra layer of abstraction when you're just communicating via words on a page, not via seeing anyone's face. So presumably the next level of emotion AI goes beyond just inferring from someone's face, but might actually go through inferring through everything except their face. Maybe the words they're using, the tone they're using, the pace at which they're talking, as well as the environment around them. So, but have you done any work without any faces to infer emotions? Is that something you see in the future?
Well, there's a lot of work in the sentiment analysis kind of space that's just focused on natural language processing and understanding, NLP and NLU. But what is interesting is if you dissect kind of the choice of words we use is only 10% of how we communicate. The majority of how we communicate is nonverbal. And to Vera's point, that's all lost when we're communicating, remotely, and we don't see the effect of our tweet, on everybody else, how it falls on other people. And I think that is, in the book, I talk about an empathy crisis, and I really do think we are going through an empathy crisis with people just dehumanizing each other.
So again, a bit like privacy, we have to look as technologists to how we can help to solve that problem. So I don't have all the answers, but I think as technologists, we need to address those issues because they become more and more prevalent, especially in this new world we find ourselves in, where we're not always face to face. So we lose that 90% of the meaning from the words.
There's another comment by Saad Saraf. It may be possible with IBM Watson to sense such interactions in racism and spot and block those. That's an interesting thought.
I
think what the thought that came to me there is kind of trying to mitigate bias in how we build kind of and deploy these solutions and algorithms. That's going to be really important, because if we accidentally train these systems and just kind of mirror all the bias that exists in society and then deploy these systems at scale, that's definitely going to be an issue.
That's definitely going to be an issue. These things have to be cautious. Again, if it's a suggestion rather than an instruction, maybe there's a way where you can do something that offers warnings, or maybe just tries to guide you rather than trying to tell you what to do, or to be a nanny state, but to be more of a kind of a helping hand to help you through these situations.
Yeah. And then there's a number of comments. Hi, Eric, and Ryan and Tim, all kind of around this idea that are there repercussions of having kind of these digital assistants or digital coaches versus real people? And I certainly know of at least one study that was done at USC where they had PTSD patients. Half of the patients talked to an actual human clinician, and the other half engaged with an emotionally intelligent avatar.
Mm-hmm.
They found that the patients were way more forthcoming with the avatar than they were with the human doctors, because they perceived the avatars to not be judgmental. And so they were more open to it. Isn't that interesting?
So if you combine avatar with digital twin, you get a kind of quite an interesting combination, don't you? If you had an avatar that was actually your digital twin, or at least a kind of rendering of the coach that's ideal for you based on your emotional and physiological needs, that's
right.
That's kind of an interesting place to go.
I'm wondering if have you used or heard of Replica? I don't know if anybody who's tuned in has heard of it. It's an AI kind of chatbot platform, and it's basically you can feed it your text messages with anybody, and it will learn you. Basically, it will learn. And I've talked to a few people who are using it during these times, especially if you're living alone, like young people who are kind of isolated at the moment. And it's just fascinating. People are just totally confiding with this chatbot and using it to raise concerns. I just think it's really interesting, and it's a gray line. I haven't really decided if I'm totally on board with that or not, because I don't see this technology as replacing people. I don't want it to replace people or people connections, but there's definitely a gap that's being filled right now.
Yeah. How does that impact the physical world? I mean, a lot of these things are kind of digital only and are in people's digital world. But how do you see things like that impacting the physical world as well as the digital one? Are there examples?
Yeah, I mean, I know, for instance, I know the co-founder of Siri pretty well, and they were really surprised by how people, again, confided in Siri, right? And you could imagine how that then translates into people's relationships with Alexa or Jibo. So we had a social robot called Jibo at home. It's an MIT spin-out that isn't around anymore. But it was just so fascinating to watch how my son interacted with Alexa versus interacting with Jibo. With Alexa, it was very transactional, very bossy. Like, he would tell her to do something and then done. With Jibo, it was more of a conversation. Like, he'd walk, across the room, and Jibo would say, "Oh, hi, Adam," because it has facial recognition. And then Adam would engage with it, and Jibo would say, "Oh, what was your dream like? What did you dream of last night?" It was just very conversational, very personable. So, and he was really upset when Jibo went away. Basically, he was in tears.
So the areas of personalization in the physical world that might respond to that are the ones where you have an emotional reaction. And funnily enough, they're all the things that we might want to personalize, like our food, like our exercise regime, like our drink, like our cosmetics. So all of those things are things that have very emotional reactions. And so your avatar that we've just created, that was a physician, that is also a digital twin, could also be our coach for all of those things, because we're going to have an emotional reaction to that. So when I'm out exercising, you have emotional moments, right, where you really don't want to do it anymore, and that's the moment where you need the most personalized coaching. So I do think there's the physical world, these aren't just digital things. They're always going to end up with physical interfaces. At the end of the day, we're all, the activities we do all end up physical rather than just being purely digital. So that's where physical and digital personalization converge.
It's so fascinating.
What else have we got?
We're still on that topic of, okay, so do you think we can raise our kids to interact with chatbots and algorithms rather than interacting with real people and build their personality based on human behavior? I mean, I think the umbrella I take, which I think is the umbrella you're thinking about this too, is we're not trying to replace people, but we're trying to augment, right? If you can give me a personalized coach that is affordable, right? Like a few people out there can afford having, a personalized coach that they have access to all the time that helps them with exercise and nutrition and sleep and etc. But that's not inclusive, right? The majority of us can't afford to have that. But if you can create it in a way that's scalable, I think you're filling a gap that exists right now, or a need.
Absolutely. We're great believers in making technology that's available to everyone, not just early adopters in niche markets, but stuff that can be rolled out on a very large scale. And of course, in the physical world, that's a lot about developing technology over time that starts at high end and ends up as kind of mass market and at low enough cost points.
Yep.
If you combine that with inclusive technology, like you're mentioning, which really is able to meet the needs of the whole wide range of humans that are there, then you've got this wonderful combination of something that's both low enough cost but also available and inclusive. And that's the goal for these sorts of technologies. They should not just be niche. They should be as mass market as possible and available to all, and therefore more inclusive.
Yeah, absolutely.
I keep coming back to the question of anything to do with just purely digital learning. In the end, everything is physical. In the end, we don't just, even if we're responding just to a screen, we're in the world and everything around us is in the world. So in terms of education, it's bringing everything back to the physical. I think that brings it to life and makes it real.
I mean, I think this is a really interesting concept. Like, imagine if like the everyday objects in our home kind of become ambient, emotion-enabled interfaces, right? Like not just your fridge, but I don't know, like your clothing, right? Maybe your clothing kind of, it's like, I don't know, like, okay, you look stressed today, wear me because I'm going to make you feel better. I mean, I don't know. Like,
okay, let's start with your sportswear, right? Let's start with functional clothing. So something that actually makes a difference to your performance and can help. Why wouldn't that be part of your coaching regime? You put on your running shirt, and your running shirt is part of how you are coached because it's sensing you. It's got the physiological, the biological sensors in it, but it's also part of the interface.
Right.
That is going to happen, and it will happen through this combination of the convergence of the digital service and the physical hardware that enables you to do that.
Yeah.
Plus the digital twin, the digital coach that's emotionally sensitive to your needs, that's able then to customize it. And that could be anything. And like I say, I mean, I'm riffing now. We didn't talk about this, but I think the areas of your life that you most want to personalize are the areas that you have an emotional reaction to, like your conversations, like your food, like your exercise, like the way you look. These are the things that you care about emotionally that are very personal to you. So it makes sense for those to be the ones where we apply the technology for personalization, and of course to medicine, like we said.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is very personal.
So do we want to tell people about your personalization ebook? I think that's
yes. So this is your chance to win one of 15 copies of Rana's book, which we're giving away to people who go and download our ebook on personalization. The link is there. I think someone's also going to put it in the chat so you can download it. So if you go and download that, and then in a few days, I think, or a week's time, we're going to do a draw and give away 15 of these to people who've downloaded the book. So please do that. It's a cracking book. It's not just about Cambridge. It's got all sorts of other things in it, but I do like the Cambridge bit. No, it's very inspirational. It's for me, it was just great to meet you because it puts that layer onto the personalization technologies that we've been talking about, that really is one of those missing building blocks, adding emotional awareness to the physical and the biological awareness and the ability to model human behavior. Adding emotion to that is just one of those missing building blocks. So it's very exciting to have met you and to think of that as part of the future of personalized products.
Thank you. And I appreciate what I found fascinating in all of our interactions and with the Cambridge Consultants kind of broader team is this commitment to human machine understanding and really taking a very, I think when people think about AI and automation, it's always about efficiency and productivity, right? Whereas we're coming to it with this personalization, humanization hat on. And I think that's an equally important part of the equation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a very personal thing, technology, and it ought to be, and we ought to be able to adapt the technology to meet people's personal needs, not just the other way around.
So I have a question for you that again is off script, but I just find it very interesting how you guys continue to innovate, and I don't know, do you have a secret sauce? Like what is your approach to innovation? Cross industry, like cross technology, cross industry.
I've got to say, it's the people and the diversity, breadth, different experiences, different backgrounds, all brilliant around the world, and that's really the secret. I mean, we're lucky with 800 or more than that now, nearly 1,000 of us now. I always run out of the numbers, and it's really the people that are so inspiring. Other than that, yeah, just cross-fertilization of technology, really trying to invest in technology areas where we can see it coming. So bioinnovation, like I mentioned, human machine understanding, AI, 5G technologies, edge processing, all these things that are going to influence the way companies can address their markets in the coming years. So we try and put a little bit of our time aside to invest in those. Yeah. And then, yeah, of course, we have my medical colleagues would tell me that we also have very good procedures and are able to deliver very robust and safe products as well. But I think a lot of it is just the people and the inspiration that gives us. So.
That's awesome. I think that brings us back to something I know we both care deeply about, which is this notion of inclusivity, whether it be it in the team or the design or the end or the kind of the end vision of where both these products and services would eventually land, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. This idea of it being low enough cost that it can reach the market, but also smart enough that it can address everyone's needs, no matter who they are around the world. That's where we'd love to end up.
That's the holy grail. Great. Well, I think we're still getting questions.
Any more questions?
Yeah. What are the psychological aspects, especially in children, bonding with AI or sharing emotion with something that does not care? Will it not create kind of more self-centeredness? I actually think we do attach to all sorts of objects already. Like people kind of socialize or invoke kind of a human kind of element on all sorts of devices. I mean, people have names for their cars and they have names for their vacuum cleaners, right?
I think also we've got a lot to learn from our colleagues in Asia on this, because I was lucky enough to work in Japan and with Hitachi, and they were one of the pioneers of this concept of social innovation. So the idea that technology is about communities, not just about individuals. So that's quite a different viewpoint from our kind of selfish person with phone view of the world. But I think that's part of the solution, is to see it as a community-based technology, not just a personal technology.
Yeah, I love that. So I forgot, but apparently we are giving away one signed copy of Girl Decoded from our end as well. I do not know what the algorithm for picking is, but we will announce that, I guess.
Well, so you've got one signed copy and we've got 15 unsigned copies. So let's see what happens. Little experiment to see what happens with competitions here, to see how many entrants we get.
I'm happy to send personalized book plates for your 15.
Don't say that. You've just ruined the experiment. That's fine.
That's great.
So what's your big ambition, Rana? Where do you want Affectiva to go next?
I just really want us to see this technology deployed globally across industries. Like, I'm very excited about the work we're doing in automotive. In the next few years, our technology will be powering a lot of our vehicles, hopefully. So I'm excited about that. And then I just really want to see it ultimately bring humans closer to each other. I think that's really my goal. Like, humanize us before we dehumanize each other is my goal.
That sounds good. Well, let's hope we can work together, because making that part of everyone's personal lives and all of the objects, and not just their tablets or their computers or their phones, is where we'd like to be. That should be everywhere in their lives.
Absolutely. On that note, thank you so much for organizing this, and it was
no problem.
A pleasure to have you. And we will continue the discussion online. If people have more questions, we're happy to answer it.
Yes, we'll make sure we look at all the questions and answer them all if we haven't answered them during the time.
Thank you again, Duncan.
Thank you, and thanks everyone for joining us.